Yes, family, we are cruising on updates on different subjects and different topics that we continue to handle as we continue to watch around what is happening in our country, in our neighboring countries, in Africa, and the rest of the world. We are live here with Chatufa. Thank you so much for joining and supporting the gospel of the freedom of the Zimbabwean people. We are looking at the very thorny issues that South Africa is facing right now, which is the issue of coalitions after not even a single party was able to get the 50% threshold in the past elections. And a great deadlock is there, a locking of horns is what the situation is like right now. And time is moving while South African politicians really need to pull up their socks and do something about this. The scenario is a bad one, but we are still watching to see how far it is going to go. The ANC only worried about positions, not principles in the coalition. This is what the EFF is saying. And I still remember yesterday, I was playing you a video of Fikile Mbalula, if you still remember, on how Mbalula was complaining about what the EFF has done, where the EFF is putting demands on the table. And he said the EFF is giving us the 10 commandments. It's very difficult for us to operate with the EFF with the way that they are handling us. And we talked about it yesterday. But now we are seeing also a response from the EFF who are saying the ANC only are worried about positions and not about the principles in the coalition. So I think principles are more important than positions. And I've been saying this from day one, that what is important is what the South African people need. Politicians must understand that they are elected not to argue about the benefits to their stomachs, but they are supposed to argue on behalf of the needs of the South African people. That's what is the most important thing. So our politicians must change. Our politicians must continue to evolve and become better politicians. Politicians who do understand the mandate of the people is number one before they talk about their own welfare. So I want us to just look at the video where Floyd Shivambu, the EFF deputy president, has been speaking about this scenario of how the ANC is concentrating more on themselves, on positions, rather than on principle. So let's just hear what he had to say.
Winner after the 2024 general elections. And then the next meeting, they came to say that they came from the National Executive Committee to say that they are proposing a government of national unity, which includes all political parties that contested elections. And then we say that doesn't make sense. It's not sensible to say that all political parties that contested elections must form government together. We then say that there has to be sound ideological principles and foundational values that define whoever is going to constitute government together, so that you do not spend a lot of time debating and clutching amongst each other as government as to what foreign policy positions do you take, how do you interpret the poverty, inequality, and unemployment crisis that is defining South Africa? How do you approach the redress question? And our persuasion to the ANC was to say that because despite the fact that we have got substantial ideological differences with the ANC, there are at least some common features that define us and maybe other political parties. One is the emphasis that we should redress the historical imbalances that were caused by colonialism and apartheid. We should redress the imbalances of the past. We should confront white supremacy and domination over the economy. But you have got political parties that do not believe in such ideals, which think that let's just proceed as if there was no colonialism and apartheid in South Africa, who are not even associated at all with the redress question, but also who are saying that let us uplift the very progressive gains that were gained in protection of workers' rights. We then say that there are so many basic principles which we can agree on. Of course, in terms of what happens afterward, we might disagree because our path says that ultimately we should go into economic freedom in our lifetime, which is socialist in character. But in the immediate, there are issues which we can agree upon with the African National Congress as to what do we confront as government. We can have common foreign policy because more or less we agree as to associate winner.
So there we have it. So indeed, the EFF here, they do really have a very valid argument. The argument that they have is we must be talking about principles, because principles of governance is what is more important than anything else. But it looks like the other side, which is the ANC, after the shaking that has happened to them, they are more concerned about positions. How many positions are we going to retain? Which positions are we going to hold? And how safe are we going to be? So it's like they are more on safeguarding their themselves. They are more on making a fence around themselves so that they are protected within the government. Because in most cases you'll be seeing that the fight will be about are we going to be taking the finance? Are we going to be taking maybe the police or the home affairs? Which department or which ministry are we going to be getting hold of? And in government, which positions are we going to have? Is the president going to be coming from us? What about the speaker? What about? So that's what is worrying them. So when they negotiate, they could be looking at what demands are coming from the other party. If the other party comes and it does not look like it's also demanding the areas that they are trying to protect, they would rather opt for that party instead of opting for principle. Because principle is what causes the government to continue to run smoothly. Because if there are no proper principles of governance, then that government is not going to function. It's not going to function. So the differences are always there because these are two different political parties that have different manifesto, that have a different philosophy. That is understood. But the principle of running government is simple because it is guided by the Constitution. So if we all just come into the Constitution and look at what we are expected to do according to the Constitution of the land and the procedures and the operating procedures that are laid in the different ministries, then if those are followed from the minister down to the last person, to the cleaner, and it's done perfectly, there's no problem. Two different parties of different philosophies can be able to come together and do that. But if one party is not looking at principles, it's looking at the idea of protecting their positions, that's where we have a problem. Because for ANC to find themselves where they are today, it is because they've broken a lot of principles. Because the moment you start to allow corruption to crop in, you are already breaking the principles of governance, which is transparency and honesty. You see? So the moment you start to allow, corrupt deployment of cadres, just people being put in positions just like that. Do you know one thing about South Africa that maybe a lot of you did not know? Let me just tell you. It was only in the last election, not this very one, the previous election that of mayors that happened, where Cyril Ramaphosa changed the things and said, now there's no one who is going to become a mayor who does not have at least O levels. Do you know that in the past, from that day going back, the mayors that were deployed by the ANC, most of those mayors did not even have matric. They call it matric in South Africa, which is Form 4. Just imagine. You'd have somebody who is just deployed on account of being a cadre of the party. He's just being somebody of the police of the party. He has influence in the party, or he has many people that would support him from the party. And then they are given a position of a mayor of a town or a city. Imagine, with the knowledge that a mayor must have. And then you are putting somebody who does not even have O level, just because he's an appointee from a political party. So Ramaphosa had to change the game. And I remember at that point, there was one or two who had already won, who had already been voted for into the position of mayor, but who ended up losing. And then their deputies who had at least something in terms of education became the real people to occupy the offices. So this is the same thing that we are talking about, of principle, that there must be principle. So the EFF is correct on this one, very, very correct. Principle matters most than any other thing, any other issue of political protection, whether we are going to survive, how many of our guys will be in, how many will be out, and they are spending time juggling on that matrix. That is not it. It's not important. People are supposed to be talking about what is it that we together can do for South African people. What are the expectations of the South African people? What are the areas that need attention in South Africa? Whether it's infrastructure, whether it's maybe health, or it's the electricity issue that we know South Africa suffers from so much, and the issues of economics, and maybe employment, the issues of employment creation, and resuscitating some other infrastructure in companies that have collapsed, and empowering the local business people, or something like that. Those are things that every political party cannot argue about, because they are principles of government. So why are they failing to agree? Because someone does not want to come to principle. Someone wants to be talking all about how can we protect so and so that we continue holding that position and that position and that position. That is a very, very big difference. That is not also very constructive, and it is not progressive for the country itself. Politicians must look at the country first, must put the country first before themselves. So I don't know when this is going to get to an end, because as long as these two sides continue to pull to each other, then there's going to, this locking of horns might continue to go on and on and on. We have seen it happening almost in every environment of discussion. With the DA, there were issues also with the DA. So coming to the EFF, there are also issues with the EFF. The MK has already refused talking to the ANC as long as Cyril Ramaphosa is still there. So there is already an impasse. There's already a locking of horns, and the other parties are small parties that would need quite a lot to bring to the EFF. I mean, to the coalition. That becomes a problem. This is why I think the ANC had opted for the for the unity government, where they would just say everyone come in, because they are afraid of just choosing one or two, because the choice itself, the idea of coming to the choice itself is very complex. It's not easy. It raises serious eyebrows on both ends. So they are trying to run away from that. But that is the reality on the ground. That is the devil they are supposed to face. They can't run away from it, because otherwise there's no other way that they can ever solve this problem. So this is what we are seeing happening. Let me just hear what you think also. Gogomawire was late today. I saw your comment coming in the last show when we were about to close. How are you, Gogo? I hope you are good. Politicians of today are there for luxury and riches. That's all. They messed up, so they need to shield their deals. Be there to serve the country and its citizens. You can say that again. Very, very well said there. Politicians must remember, are there to serve their people. ANC vakuchika EFF avadi zvisina basa. There's no other better devil anyway, because both sides, even on the side of the DA, Brother John, it's still tough. It's tough, both sides. There's no side that is better for the ANC. So they just have to face the devil and make sure that they swallow their pride. They reach somewhere where there's a compromise and this thing can work. Good morning, Chatufa Chet. How are you, my brother? Keep up the good work. Change is coming. Thank you so much, Brother Tyrese. And my sister Judith also is here. And let me see if there's a new comment that has just come in. This is Gogo Boya. Gogo Boya saying ANC has never seen this coming at all. This one is a nightmare. It's a nightmare, Gogo Boya. I think they are pinching themselves so that they can wake up from this very serious nightmare. They wish they can just wake up from this dream. They never saw it coming, and their friends also across the Limpopo, they are also going towards the same fate. They are very soon going to be pinching themselves, wishing they can wake up from that deep disaster of a dream, but they will never wake up from it, because it will be reality on the ground. So family, this is what is happening in South Africa as we continue to be looking at the events that are happening. I'm so glad and grateful for your contribution and also for standing with this platform. So remember, as always, to subscribe, to like, and share.